Imagine a backwards peninsula. Now, this peninsula can be taken as a patchwork. Beautiful, colorful, lively, full of culture. Now, an unknown force takes this patchwork of yours, of ours, away from you by force. And after years of hardship, spilling blood, sweat, and tears, we've finally gotten back this patchwork. But the patchwork hasn't gotten the care it needed over those few years. No. The sun has pounded away on racial unity, leaving behind a black and white picture on racism. Corruption has seeped into the fabric of the patchwork, leaving behind an unbearable stench that makes people leave it untouched and uncared for. This patchwork is Malaysia, and if we don't clean up what has been done to Malaysia, then the next generation will not appreciate the beauty of Malaysia. If we clean too hard, it will rip apart the patchwork. But cleaning too soft won't make a difference at all. Now, let's take a look at the Malayan Union, a major part of the Malaysian aspects and politics. And it started in 1946 and dissolved 2 years later, 1948. Basically, it was a crazy idea. It was supposed to give over the Sultan's power, political power, to the Queen, to the British Crown, and it gave easy citizenship to anyone. Citizenship to anyone who has stayed in Malaysia for 5 to 8 years. And basically it belittled Malays in our own land, in our own country. My grandfather, has fought and sacrificed so much to dissolve the Malayan Union. So now let's look 2 years ago, Malaysia 2016. 31.7 million people lived in Malaysia as citizens. Out of that, 28.4 million were Bumi Putra, Malays, Orang Asli, Dayak. Of those 31.7 million, a bit more than 6 million were of Chinese descent, Chinese Malaysians. If you looked at the average income of an average Chinese household, you would find it to be 1.4 times greater than that of a Malay household. Why would that be? People would say that the Malay affirmative action policy would help clear things out, but I don't think so. I think that we, as Malays, have to take things more into our hands. And if you look around, for example, a public dining hall. You look over there when people are eating, and you'll see that the Chinese are often talking a lot, laughing, having a good time. But looking at the Malays, you would see that they're more quiet. They don't necessarily talk. They just eat, get out, do their job, whatever they have to do. And I see that as a problem because 23% of Malaysian graduates don't find jobs. Not because they're incapable of doing so, no, they're more than capable of finding jobs. It's that they're not reaching out, they're not social, and making people feel awkward when in the same room. And so, how I see we can improve this aspect is by improving on our social skills, making sure that people feel comfortable and making yourself feel comfortable with other people. And well, that's only the average income households. If we look towards the more upper class people, you can see that they normally would send off their kids to overseas, abroad, for studying. And those kids, or young adults, would often see a job that they would approach and want to work at overseas. And it's not a bad thing. It brings good reputation to Malaysia and Malaysian workers, and might even give off a bit of a biased preference to them. But after so long of being away from their own homeland, of local talents and speaking Bahasa Melayu or whatever it is, they coming back, they would have forgotten their culture. And forgetting a culture is bad because it's generations of practices kept alive by practice and practice over the years. And so, while overseas, what people need to do is to understand more about their culture, their religion, their identity, and make it so that they feel more connected, more personal with that culture, religion, identity, so they would practice it more often, so that it would feel more natural for them to cook kueh mueh or speak in Bahasa. It's just from within Malaysia's boundaries. If we look from an international perspective, from someone that doesn't really understand Malaysia's culture, you know, a Westerner who's might be closed-minded and might see Malaysia as a place with good food, good views, maybe even pretty clothes, but also a place full of corruption scandals like the 1MDB scandals. They would think of the people as maybe not too good people. So what we have to do is, when they come over as tourists, we must show them and make them understand our culture too. Let them know that how we think and how we view certain stuff and aspects, whether it be political, social, economical, and let them understand that we aren't bad people. We might be a bit kiasu or competitive, but that's not necessarily bad. So a lot of new things are emerging within the 21st century, yet we have to stay rooted to our past, to our cultures. If not, we'll kill off practices, generations of practices, and we would have wasted a lot of knowledge passed down from our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers, and so on. The most important thing, however, is to not just respect your own culture or someone else's culture or whatever they identify as or for, but to understand, to feel more in touch with them. And only then will your parents look at you and say to the world proudly that this is my son, an exemplary citizen of Malaysia. Thank you.